Scott.
Mark.
I love the fact that we never plan this and we always catch each other off guard.
Yep.
Scott, it is episode 8.
My goodness, my favorite number.
Would you believe that we are screwing up episode 8 already?
Are we really?
We are, because episode 8 is the solo episode, and yet there's 2 of us.
We always mess something up.
It's all good. We have been talking about doing this episode for a while.
Yep.
Our topic of the week was suggested by our friend Derian.
Oh, very nice.
Yes. Hi, Derian. I know you listen to this. I hope this sounds better. On that note, we should hopefully be sounding better because we have our new recording setup in front of us.
It's so nice.
It is so nice. And I have to thank Cynthia and Tsunami, Mr. T, from MeepleSource, because it was an extra bonus to us that we were trying to figure out how to get this stuff. And then an Amazon gift card showed up and bang, here we are.
The blessings that rain down from the gaming gods.
Man, MeepleSource treats me too well. So while she would be mad at me for saying this, I'm saying this. Cynthia, thank you very much. Did not have to give us that Amazon card. Everything else that we got through Gen Con itself was great. But now we get to call you out because we sound better.
Thanks, Cynthia.
The solo episode.
I know.
We are talking about games that we play solo, various solo modes out of multiplayer games. What do we like play? How do we like to play that type of stuff? There's only going to be one break in the theme, and that's why did I play that? Because it's hard to do that as a solo game and have it be an effective segment.
And the game that we're going to talk about in the Why Did I Play That, technically it's not Why Did I Play It, it's why I waited so long to play that.
That's correct.
And I can't really wait to talk about it because boy did we get to have an experience.
We'll get
into that one.
Moving into our first regular segment, Scott, what has been on your table in solo mode?
I think I should automatically start with the preface that solo mode for me is still relatively new. I tend to prefer playing games that I have more of my friends around. But the solo gaming space has started happening, especially because games now come with them.
Yep.
And they're just as good as playing with my friends.
That is one of the few benefits of COVID is the focus on adding in solo modes, but competent, well-designed, interesting solo modes.
Yeah, we've had several games that's like, oh, I have a solo mode. And you're like, oh.
Well, Hobbs solo mode is fine.
Yeah. So I have gotten to play, we always typically bring up 3.
Yes.
So the 3 that I have played the most, the first one I'm going to talk about is actually one that you gave me, and you gave me just recently. Designed by Nayo Shimarua, artist Julian Grepp, was published by Allplay, happens to be the brand new game Mindspace. Well, actually, technically it's not brand new. It was created in 2023.
It was also a re-implementation of a game called For Tatami Mat Room.
Yeah.
Where you were organizing a small Japanese apartment, a 4 tatami mat room, and figuring everything out. I think I would have preferred that theme to come forward instead of the Mindspace one, but go ahead and talk about it.
Yeah, so you are working through your emotions. It's a very interesting concept. The concept, I feel, is done very, very well. I think the artwork could have been done a little bit better. But I mean, for a nice solo game, because it very much is a solo game. And yes, you can play with multiple players, but it essentially is multiplayer solitaire. I would love to see what it looked like in its original form so that I could definitely do a great comparison on it. I feel the game is fine. It leaves me wanting a little something, but the challenge is definitely there. And now that Mark has shown me a picture of the 4.5 Tatami Mat Galaxy.
It's very much a small Japanese game, an independent thing. It's a lot of Allplay's bread and butter is bringing forward Japanese games to an American market, retheming it. They have a better production on it, but like I said, I think I like the old thing better.
It's a very nice game. It will definitely be within arm's reach for when I want to pick it up again and feel like I've already played these other games and I'm good to go. Second one that I've been playing and have picked back up came out in 2018, and the reason why it came back onto my plate is because I actually got to pick up new promos for it. Originally designed by Halimor Hawk and Lorenzo Silva, designed by Marta Tranquilli, published by the Horrible Guild. It is Railroad Inc.
Yep.
And it was the Archipelago that has come out, where there's like little islands, and it's all purple and orange. It's very, very cute. Do you have it?
I do not have Archipelago. I did not know it existed.
Okay, so I did. I picked up the Archipelago and have just been kind of looking around and playing with that. Very, very interesting with its new mechanics. And I suggest anyone that likes railroading go out there and check it out, because if you're still on the inside, there's the little bridges. And so when you put your piece there, you draw your line, you continue that line over to the next island. So it's really kind of cute. Lastly, but not least, I'm still picking up pieces for this one. The new 2024 Rolling Realms Redo or Redux. It depends on how you pronounce it. Yeah, I know it is a French word, so I say redo. Of course, this was designed by Jimmy Stonemeyer, Carol Tateka.
I was actually also going to talk about this one.
Yeah.
So we can bridge off of there. I'll let you talk about it, but I do want to say it is great to see Carol's name on this. The original design was Jamie's, and Carol came in, especially thought of the promo realms, and he has been doing rulebook writing and realm development co-design with Jamie since pretty early on in the promo process. And if you look at most promos, his name is on the back flap with that. So the fact that he's got his name on the box proper now, I think is a really great thing for him.
Yeah, and also the main artists that are listed are Miles Bensky and Petrescu. You were awesome enough and helped me get some of the starting realms because I was going to pick it up at Gen Con. Since Gen Con, I have got 8.
Sure.
And I've been actually playing the Rolling Realms Redo Soccer League. It is fun and kicking my butt.
Yeah.
I'm winning, but boy, is it getting close, especially when it's like, oh, hey, you're playing against an A team, and A team has +1 star, and then there's no negatives. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, look, this already has a 4.5, which means they're going to score 5.5, and I don't know what I'm doing yet.
Yep.
And so I've gone all through league number 4. I'm starting on league number 3 because I'm progressing.
Sure.
Yeah, it's stupid fun. It really is. It's really, really dumb. And I love it. I love it.
So when it released, it was something that Jamie designed for COVID, for playing over Zoom. And then people were like, hey, we'd like a physical product. And then other designers came in and said, hey, this would be great to add our touch onto it. So there's a lot of fan realms. The Stonemeyer Facebook group for Rolling Realms is flooded with fan realms. So if you ever want to try new stuff, great stuff there. There's a couple of really phenomenal designers that are doing the work in there. And in fact, some of the promo realms are from fans.
Oh, wow. That's great.
So that is a cool part about the game. I had such a hard time recommending Rolling Realms as its original release because you had to like Stonemeyer to really care about what's going on. At this point, and in the new Redux, there is not a single Stonemeyer realm in it. So if you don't care about Stonemeyer games, you can still play Rolling Realms and have a good time. Because what I have found, the best realms do this, and there's a couple that I just straight up don't like because they don't do it, is they manage to take a core mechanism of whatever game you're playing, and it makes you feel like on this one card where you're rolling 2 dice and you have to place your resources and place your numbers, you are playing a minimized version of that game.
The one that absolutely blows my mind and actually comes in the box for Rolling Realms Redux is Wonderland's War.
Very good for that.
Kicks my keister. And I love it. When I heard it was coming out at Gen Con, I went, yay, it's coming out of Gen Con. Well, then I got to the MeepleSource booth and I saw what was available. And I was like, wait a second. Role Player, Dice Throne, Dinosaur. Wait a second. Those are games I own. Those aren't Stonemeyer games. And I remember looking at you on Saturday and saying,
Pick me some.
Pick me some.
Yeah.
I think I want this game now. And now, because of course I'm a completionist, I will have all of it. But
Well, as somebody that owns all of it as well, it makes sense.
yeah.
I love the game for the game itself and trying to see just how the mechanisms all interact with each other. While I keep track of my scores, I don't actually consider any kind of win-loss condition unless I'm specifically playing mini golf or Beyond the Realmiverse, whatever. Because part of the joy of that game is, okay, I have these 3 realms out. How are they going to interact with each other? I can switch one realm out and it's a completely different game. It is easily one of my most played games. I have been thoroughly enjoying all the Redux and all the promos. The new Dinosaur Island promo is spot on thematically and it has become one of my favorite realms.
Yes.
Really enjoy it.
The whole premise of the game is you shuffle the deck and you draw at random.
Yep.
And the first one I drew was Dinosaur Island, and I went, this is mini Dinosaur Island, and I don't have all the figures. This is great.
You don't have to worry about it, but you still have to keep your security level up and you have to manage the amount of dinosaurs you have. And the more dinosaurs you had that brings in more guests. It is a phenomenal distillation of just that little circle. If you play the Micro Dojo realm, which was designed by the designer of Micro Dojo, you feel like you are playing Micro Dojo. Just straight up, you feel like you are playing that game on one card. I'm very happy that you like Rolling Realms because when I first introduced it to you, we just did a quick one round, and I didn't think you particularly cared about it.
It was one of those that was, I need to revisit.
Yep.
And not at 1 a.m.
But it's absolutely a phenomenal game.
Yeah.
And because of the way the new Redux box gives you everything you need for 6 players, so you have your cards, you have your dice, you have everything. You can pick that up. You can pick up the original Rolling Realms. There are 12 completely different realms in each one. And then you just kind of pick what promos you want. You could be crazy like both of us and own everything. And I have found games that I have wanted to learn to play because of it. I have found promos that I like more than the game that they're based on. I love the Honeybuzz realm. Don't particularly care about Honeybuzz.
Right.
It's okay. It's that type of interesting stuff for me. Interestingly, the only one that does not feel like its own game is Expeditions, because it was printed very early in the process where it was originally a Rondell game.
Okay.
And it was originally called Expedition. But there was another game called Expedition coming out around the same time, and Jamie just
added an S.
Just added an S to say, you know what, I'm not gonna get involved. They're two different games, but we're not gonna do that. So that one
cause confusion.
That one feels very different. The Lost Ruins of Arnak one, I really dislike because I don't feel like it is a decent representation of it. I also don't like Lost Ruins of Arnak.
But yeah, you don't like Lost Ruins of Arnak, so that's like no big loss for you.
The only one that I would say I love the game, but I don't like the realm at all is Architects of the West Kingdom. To me, it just does not feel like Architects.
How I've started picking them up, I do it randomly.
That's fair.
Oh, wait, I want this risky rewards because it's actually a thing saying, hey, we'll
it's
go
a mode
into
to play with. Yes.
And it slots into the whole soccer game, the whole soccer tournament. And I was like, oh, hey, cool. That'll be cool. So that's on my next list. And then I literally went through and I was like, I don't know which ones to pick because if I pick, I'm just going to random. And I literally rolled dice.
Perfect.
And went...
Super in theme.
After so many rounds, I just started knocking them out. I'm like, okay, you're the lowest ones. Okay, you're going. And until I was left with 4 more that I wanted to order. And so I should receive them later this week.
You know what I actually have my Rolling Realm set up for? Playing whatever I want. So I have a set of the cards in my office. I have a set of the cards upstairs in my room. I have a set in my car, and I keep a set in my bag.
Shut up. That's ingenious. What's been on your table, sir?
In addition to Rolling Realms, and I think we can both confidently say at this point, as a bonus review, that is a shelf.
Oh, God bless, it's a shelf.
It's wonderful. I have been playing a few different games. We went to Gen Con. I brought a lot of stuff back. We discussed how many things have solo modes in them. I have been learning games or playing games solo. There are a number of games that I really enjoy, but I actually want to save for bigger segments in other episodes.
Of course.
So while I am obsessed with Tir na Nog right now, I'm not going to talk about that.
Okay.
What I have played, and I have been playing this first one for a while since before Gen Con. I got it before I went to Colorado, and I've had just a phenomenal time with it. It is A Gentle Rain.
Oh, such a good game.
A Gentle Rain is not a game I expected to pick up. I first heard about it when the Dice Tower did their Pretentious Games video, which I thought was very funny. And yeah, if you read the rules for the game, it does come off slightly pretentious, to be fair. But A Gentle Rain is by Kevin Wilson, who this shows the breadth of his design because he's done this. He's done Kinfire Chronicles. He's been doing games for like 20 years. The guy's a heck of a designer. And A Gentle Rain is 20 odd tiles and 8 flower markers, and that's it. And you are laying out tiles where the theme is you are sitting in a park at a lake edge and you are trying to watch the flowers bloom on the lake. And if it all works out, then great. Thematically, whatever. You are matching sides of the tiles that have flower colors on them, and when they pair up and the square of 4 tiles is completed, that space in the center of it, you get to place one of the flower tokens of the colors on the surrounding completed tiles. Very smooth, very easy little system. And it is a game that I will play 4, 5, 6, 7 times in a row because it's not long. It's not complex. In fact, I end up using it to kind of zen out, kind of calm my brain down, turn off a little bit because it has just enough of that. Okay, I need to think this through, but I'm mostly just kind of moving my hands and I am allowing myself to just de-stress. And so that's really where I've been using this game. When I originally heard about it on the solo board game groups I'm on Facebook, I'm on 3 or 4 of them, there was a stretch of time right around when it started delivering from Kickstarter and it hit in Target, and everybody was talking about it. And I happened to be randomly walking through Target and I saw it and I'm like, fine, it's $20, I'll try it out. Some of the best $20 I spent.
Yeah, what's so funny is this is actually on my table shelf and trade. This is totally a shelf game for me. It came out from Incredible Dream Studios, where their big game was last year, Kinfire Chronicles.
Yep.
And I think, if I remember correctly, they actually came out with an expansion or like a standalone type game that's in that same universe.
There's a couple different things they've done. There's expansions for Kinfire, and then there's Kinfire Delve, which is a side game. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff.
There's a whole bunch of stuff.
And this is actually the second edition of the game.
Yeah.
And I have the Bloom edition in the sliding box that has the 3D flower tokens.
Yeah.
But the normal box is a few bucks cheaper. It's all flat cards and tiles and everything.
The studio, just so y'all know, is in the basement of Mark's house. And so I was getting ready to do my segment of the games that made us. Actually, it was the very first one. I actually recorded several of them on that day and was very much in an emotional state because we're talking about personal stuff with these. And I went, I need to calm down. I knew you were upstairs and going to be upstairs for a while. And I grabbed your Gentle Rain and started playing it and was able to just kind of chill, zen. And it's a gorgeous little game.
It is. It takes arguably too much table space.
It does.
Because the tiles are nice and large.
Yeah, they're about 3 inches by 3 inches.
The colors, they could have picked a little different. I have a little bit of a production issue there.
I wish they were more textural thing to them so that people that do have color issues would...
They are all technically different, but on a quick glance, the red and orange look very similar.
They
their
do
shapes.
look very similar.
Multiple of them look similar.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the very cool 3D tiles, they're all the same shape. My next one is actually Next Station Paris. I love the Next Station series. I have always liked London more than Tokyo, but I'll happily play either of them at the drop of a hat. And when Paris was announced, I got very excited. Played it on BGA, really enjoyed it at Gen Con, finally found a copy of Tokyo, and I got Paris.
Nice.
And I have been playing it quite a bit. It's more Next Station. There's nothing super overwhelming. If you know Next Station, then you know what Paris does. What's interesting is that it actually adds in one gigantic central station so that every line can connect into it, and it has like 8 connections. It also adds in overpasses, so you can actually cross a line through the same station and have it not break the rule.
Oh,
and the new goals, a couple of them are you need to use a certain amount of those. One of them, and I don't remember if it's in the tiny little expansion or not, but one of them is you need to have them where they're just being used and not crossed over. So it's some really fascinating stuff. One of the goals is you need to have one line connect through all 4 starting stations. I got real close when I tried that one. I was off by 1 station. So really a fun puzzle. If you like Next Station, it's great. I have always really enjoyed it multiplayer, but frankly, it's a solo game at its heart. I enjoy it in solo play.
Yep.
The last one I want to talk about is Herbaceous from Pencil First Games. It is very similar to a few of their other games. I have not tried Floriferous. I have played Sunset Over Water. I have played the 100 Tori. I've played some stuff here and there. And ultimately what I come down to with Pencil First is they are beautiful productions, wonderful art, and I would trade them all.
Oh.
Herbaceous's solo mode is very interesting. It's very fast, but it has that same issue of something that we're going to talk about later in the episode where if the things just don't draw right, if things just don't come out perfectly, you're not going to score very well.
Okay.
And that's a bummer. I don't like when a game makes me feel like the game beat me because I drew wrong and not because I lost to the game.
Okay.
And unfortunately, it's a high score variant anyway, so there's that. So those are really the big ones that have been on my table quite a bit. I really tried to give Herbaceous a lot of extra plays. It's quick, it's simple rules, and I wanted to just try and really like it as a solo, and I just don't.
Well, you can't win them all.
No. Topic of the week, and we have already hit into this pretty heavily, but let's just break it down. Solo modes. There are a few different questions I wanted to ask you and just kind of give us our prompts.
Yeah.
So my first one, and I think this is going to be telling of the types of solo games we like. Do you like games that are specifically solo modes, or do you like games that are a solo mode of a multiplayer game, or does not matter to you?
Since the games that I typically buy are for multiple people, it is, oh, hey, this is a solo mode. Mm-hmm. So I'm not specifically looking for a solo mode. Now that I'm doing this more, even more than I was before, I'm looking for the solo mode and hoping and praying that the solo mode is good, because then it means I'm getting my money's worth.
Sure.
On the whole, not really.
Okay.
And I don't specifically going out to seek solo modes. It's usually, it has to fall back underneath my title of theme queen of being like, oh, hey, this theme looks good. Oh, it happens to be a solo game. Okay, I guess I'm buying a solo game.
Sure. I have found that really, with the exception of the Oniverse games, Onirim, Arion, Natilian, and there's some of them I certainly don't like. I'm not a fan of Sylveon or Castellian. On the whole, I don't like solo-only games.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that I have found, and I will be talking about the big one during Table Shelf and Trade later, so I don't want to necessarily name drop it yet, is a solo-only game almost always boils down to, here's a bunch of dice, you're going to play this, and it's going to be very long, and you're going to be doing a lot, and there may not be a lot of administration, but it's going to be very long, and inevitably, because it's all dice, something in the rules are going to tell me, ooh, your dice rolls didn't come up well enough right here, you have now lost the game, even though you just played for 45 minutes and you're only half the way through. I talked about this in episode 7 with Deep Space D6. Really dislike it there. I just sat through One Deck Dungeon, had a miserable time with that because you're starved for dice at the beginning, and at the end you have too many dice and you just can't lose. And the game takes over an hour. It's way too long. I want a solo mode of a multiplayer game.
Yeah.
To the point where, because I use solo modes to learn a game, to be able to also teach the game, it's very useful for me to have that. I have gotten to the point where if a game does not have a solo mode on it, it is almost entirely likely to not make my list. Like, I'm not going to buy it, because outside of the time that you and I get, common game time is pretty rare. So if I want to play my games, and I always want to play my games, I need a way to play them solo and not have to rely on a BGG fan mod, which are of varying qualities. I would much rather have the game that I am buying have a mode that lets me still play it. And the few times that I have picked up a game and the solo mode does not match the multiplayer game, that actually ends up almost always me saying I'm getting rid of it. To stay on that pencil first line, I finally managed to track down a copy of The 100 Tory, and I found it because of looking through Vincent Dutray's artwork on BGG and looking at his games. I looked at it. The theme is very great. It is well researched. It is a tiling game. You know how much I like tiling games.
Oh, yeah.
And the solo mode, every time I played it, has broken down into, if you don't do this one particular route, you will lose because the solo opponent is too strong. And when I went and I listened to reviews about the solo mode, that was their experience as well. So if a game has a solo mode, but it is not representative of the main game, that is also a killer for me.
Oh, yeah. You really want to be able to get the same experience when you are playing a solo mode of a game. Mm-hmm. If there's too much of a variance, it's very lackluster, and it's very much of a disappointment.
Mm. Have you played on Mars?
I have not.
I would like to teach you on Mars, but that would require me to relearn on Mars, and then I have to reteach on Mars. That's another kiss of death for a game, is if I look at a game, I'm like, oh, I just don't want to do that again. See why Spirit Island is gone. See why On Mars is leaving. Vital Lacerda's solo modes are normally very, very well done, and they are very representative of what the main game is.
Nice.
On Mars's feels nothing like the multiplayer game.
Oh.
So it's not even one that I could throw on the table and relearn and refamiliarize myself with.
Because it's so vastly different.
The opponent does nothing the way that a human player does. And so it just, that's out.
When I'm learning a game, a little bit of information about me, only child, so if I did have a board game, I was playing 2 people at the same time, and I was pretending I didn't know what the other person had.
Samesies.
Yeah, and so...
But I'm the youngest of 3.
But then, you were definitely playing by yourself. Mm-hmm. So no, if I get a game and I want to learn how to play it, I typically just play 2 characters. I don't look at the solo mode, because I typically don't look at solo modes. It's like, all of a sudden it's like, oh, holy cow, this had a solo mode. I find that out after I've already bought it, and I've already played it a couple times, and probably... already played it by myself as 2 players.
Setup, extra rules weight, the administration of a solo mode. How important is that for you?
I mean, you speak about one of the games that I picked up at Gen Con, Star Tycoon. Reading its solo mode, and if I read it correctly, I basically have to play the game 3 times to have it be a proper solo mode. Your company is expanding each
Yeah.
time. And I'm just like, your game's great.
Yeah, you've spoken very highly of it
I
so far.
enjoyed the heck out of the game. I played it with a good buddy of ours that we will hopefully get onto the podcast here after a bit. And we walked away from that going, that is a good game.
Yeah.
And it's not either of our normal.
Neither of you are economic players.
No.
Yeah.
And then, like, I was reading the rules for it. I'm like, oh, I have to do it 3 times? Oh, please let me have read this wrong. I don't think I have. I will probably leave the rule book with you because you'll want to. When you go in and you look at a game and it sits there and says, you've got to do this a couple times. When I'm playing a game that already takes up a lot of table space when there's multiple people, if it's going to take that same amount of table space and it's just me,
Yeah.
oh boy. And that's been another reason why it's been so hard to play Star Tycoon, because Star Tycoon takes up a lot of space. If I'm going to play a solo game, I have a little tray table because I'm just like, I'm sitting in front of the television or I'm in my room and I'm watching Dropout TV on my computer and I'm playing this game because it's fun. And I'm like, oh, I have to have a full table to do this game by myself.
Yeah.
Oh, no. It's also one of the reasons why I don't do Gloomhaven or Frosthaven by myself.
Oh, yeah. I don't want the setup to be overwhelming. If the experience ends up giving me something so strong that I don't care that it's that much, great. Don't mind.
But how often does that happen?
Not as often as I want to. There are definitely games that do it.
Good, I'm glad.
I know a couple of episodes ago I mentioned the fact that I had been playing Gears of War again.
Okay, yeah.
And that is a fair amount of setup.
Okay.
It's a dungeon crawler, it's modular with tiles, and you have to set up the decks and everything. There's a lot there. But the gameplay itself is so deeply enjoyable to me that I don't care how much setup it takes. I just really enjoy that game. When I look at something like Anachrony, I have the big Infinity box back there, and it's never going to leave my collection for a variety of nostalgic reasons, but I will never table it solo.
Okay.
I won't. The amount of setup and the amount of administration for the Chronosis is so high, it doesn't give me that back, because then on a game like that, I also have to put it all back away, and that is far too much.
Ooh.
It's actually one of the reasons why I think I came to really like Stonemaier as much as I do, because the Otoma Factory was created independently, but they worked alongside Stonemaier starting with Viticulture Essential Edition, I believe.
Okay.
And that is when they started putting in their solo modes. And Morten Monrad Peterson is a phenomenal designer of solo experiences. And I realized how interesting a game could be, that while I appreciate when a game does not require me to use too many extra components, if the solo mode is strong enough, then I'm fine with that. When you play something like Tapestry or Libertalia as solo player games, it's just a simple deck of cards, and that helps you do everything. To me, it feels like I am playing against an opponent, and that is something that I think is very important for me to solo mode. With the very, very slim exceptions of Railroad Inc. and Rolling Realms, if you are a high score variant, I'm not going to play you.
Right.
Because I want to feel like I am playing against the game, I am playing against something, and a high score variant makes me not care. In certain games like Cascadia, where there is a specific scenario to go after, and so I have to hit certain score thresholds, or in Jump Drive's solo mode, that's fine, because I am earning my score as a target. That is fine for me in a way that just, hey, here's your high score, score against it. That's another reason I'm getting rid of Herbaceous.
This really makes sense.
Now, there are 2 games that I really love. I mean, I love playing the multiplayer anyway, but I think I actually prefer them solo.
Okay.
Because of the way their scoring systems work.
Okay.
The first one is a game that you love and hold it near and dear to your heart, Sagrada.
Oh, yeah.
Have you tried it solo mode?
I haven't.
It has this developing score for the opponent that you have to beat their score, but their score is defined by whatever die is left over from the draft.
Oh.
So if you leave that 6 behind because you can't use the 6, you just gave your opponent 6 points.
Oh, no.
So there's a really interesting,
Ooh.
I need to get this many points, but I need to make sure that I kind of short the opponent on dice. But if you do that too much, now you're having to throw yours away because I can't use all these yellow dice all of a sudden. Right. It's got some really great push-pull on
because
that.
Sagrada itself is such a good, I really need this thing. And sometimes it's razor wire.
Oh, yeah.
That's neat. Guess I'm going to pull up my Sagrada when I get home.
And the best part about it is it's tight and tiny and small. You don't need much for that solo mode. You don't need a lot of space. I believe it's Doolin from Table Knots that says that he just plays a game of Sagrada with a cup of coffee in the morning, just every morning. And I get it.
Oh,
It's such a good, like, gear your mind into things, and that just based on the window you're playing, based on the tools that you have out, all that type of stuff, it can feel like a different experience every time. It's really wonderful for that.
I think that's the big appeal about having solo games, is because it's, oh, hey, I'm going to set this up in the morning. I'm going to have my box that I want to play. It's on my coffee table so that when I get up, if I've given myself enough time, I'm just going to pop this out. I'm going to play this game real quick, and then I'm going to go do the rest of my day.
Yeah.
Or I know I'm going to have a really rough day at work. I'm going to want to play something, but I don't want to pull all these pieces out.
Yep.
So, hey, look, there's one little solo game, and I'm going to play my solo game, and I'm going to do really, really well, and I'm going to be in a better mood, and then I don't have to, kick a cat or something.
Yeah. The other one, and I know you have not played this game yet, and frankly, shame on me.
Oh, was it one of those games? Okay.
It will most likely end up as a why did it take so long segment.
Oh, beautiful.
Because the game is fairly critiqued that the logistics of running the passenger can be a little frustrating. But thankfully, I can do it really well, and I can do it very quickly because I have played so much of the solo mode of both of them. This is on the Underground.
Oh, yeah. That is on the list of stuff that you're supposed to show me because I've seen it. It looks pretty. I've not played any of them.
It is a stunning game. They have this beautiful watercolor, kind of splotchy artwork on them.
Oh, the box is absolutely stunning. I've looked at them several times. I've just never...
I have very strongly considered taking the very pretty slip covers off, cutting them in frame, because that's how pretty they are. The solo mode for On the Underground, it's called the Underground Challenge.
Okay.
And depending on how difficult you want to be, you're going to pull a certain number of track cards, and you are going to preset the board for your opponent's tracks. And then they are going to get a starting score. And the entire goal of the Underground Challenge is that you just need to exceed the opponent before the deck runs out.
Oh, nice.
That's it. Literally, the setup for it is here's a couple of extra cards. You're going to put some extra pieces on the board that simulate a different opponent, and then you just play. And it is such an interesting challenge because the big difference between the solo mode and the two-player mode is that you are going to run the passenger phase twice in the solo mode. So it's going to push the deck faster, but it also means that the opponent might be scoring twice in a round, and if the passenger is in the right spot on the map, they might not be using your rails for 2 rounds in a row.
You've talked highly about this game, and it definitely is one of those we're going to have a why did it take so long?
I think it is honestly very possible and very probable that you will love it as much as I do. I don't think you will like it necessarily more because I have the games at a solid 10. Like, they are just a 10 rated game for me.
Yeah, I very rarely have a game that's a 10.
Yeah, same. If you look at my ratings, and I have something like 2,400 ratings, I think I have 60 games rated as 10s, and part of those are expansions.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't give things 10s very often, and they are truly the games that I will put down at a moment's notice and just have the rules baked into my head because that's the way I want to play it.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, I think you'll really like that one.
Yeah, can't wait to try it.
The only other thing to ask is, how do you set the stage for playing solo? Do you put on music? Do you try to do lighting in the whole bit? Or do you just say, you know what, this is my time, this is what I got, I'm going to play Rolling Realms on my little lap desk and do that?
Currently, typically, it's I get home, I start dinner, and while dinner is cooking, because it's typically either in the crock pot or on the George Foreman grill, or I'm letting it marinate for a little bit before I actually put it in the crock pot or on the George Foreman grill. And I pull the game out at that time, and I'm just like, this is my solo time, and I'm smelling the smells of my food cooking, or typically, it's one of those while I'm doing something, getting something else started. My solo games, it's typically one of those, it's a wind down from work.
Sure.
So that I'm not a monster when I go do whatever's next. Also, not a monster to myself. It's like, I'm going to roll down. Oh, hey, I probably should eat. I probably should start some laundry. Not just be like, grumble, grumble, grumble.
Yeah, that's very fair. I definitely use it in that mental health space as well. There are the moments that I use it as we're watching nothing TV or we're just spending quiet time together, my wife and I, and that's a way for me to just mess around with stuff. The only other real focus that I have with it is if I am trying to learn the game so that way I can teach the game, then I'll sit there and I may have a dedicated time where I will come down to my office where I'll do whatever. But that doesn't happen anywhere near as often. When I do play solo, I am that nerd where I like to put on the related music on the background and I try to immerse myself. I am a thematic person as well. And so when I was learning the 100 Tori, I found a Spotify playlist called Japanese Gardens and I just listened to that. And then once I was done learning the game and I played it solo, I actually kept listening to the playlist because it was nice and relaxing. So I definitely try to get into it, but it's not something that happens every time.
Now, folks, just so that you know, Mark also does this when it's multiplayer games as well. We just had a little game, earlier this week, and we played similar music. It was great. It obviously has stemmed from his use of, while he does it during his solo plays.
Probably. We are replacing our standard why did I play that segment with why did it take so long to play that?
And there's a really good reason why it took so long, because you want a good player count.
I've had fun with it at 2. I've had fun with it at 3. I've had fun with it at 5. I've had fun with it at 7.
Yeah, because we got to play it at 7 at Gen Con.
Wasn't my first time playing at 7, actually.
Really? Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, pretty much every time I played with it was the first time I got to play with it at that player count, so...
That's fair.
Because, how dare you, sir? I actually have it in my notes to talk about this. It's like, you've been a bad friend. How dare you?
Now, to be fair... Thank you. I had not played it until MacWagCon in March. So I sat on it from Gen Con of 23 to March. So I had it for 7 months before I was able to table it because I thought it needed higher player counts.
And I didn't even get to play it at MacWagCon.
Because we played it on the Sunday.
Yeah, we didn't play it till Sunday.
Yeah. The game is Veiled Fate.
Oh my god, you guys.
If you are a recurrent listener, you know my love of Ivy Studio. That's fair. I get it. They are second to me only behind Stonemaier. But it is the sheer, unmitigated quality of their games and how solid they are that makes me so obsessed with them.
And I am very quickly falling right behind you.
Yeah.
And if there's anything I can say about it, about them as a studio and the games that I've gotten a chance to see and play from Ivy Studios, it is a guarantee that you and I will continue to be friends because I don't want to have to buy those games.
That's very fair.
Because...
That's very, very fair.
But I mean, they're that good. Like, I would buy them. Mm-hmm. I'm happy I don't. But I would buy them. If I was doing my normal Fort Wayne runs along with doing this, I would have to buy a set for myself because they're that good of game.
And you have seen, because we got to play with both my deluxe metal version on one game at Gen Con, and then we got to play with the plastic retail version.
Oh, yeah.
And they are both stunning.
The molds of those demigods, even in the retail plastic, so nice.
So I actually asked Austin from Ivy, how do you elevator pitch this game? It is a tough game to elevator pitch because one of the reasons you and I both like Ivy so much is they take very disparate mechanisms and they marry them together in a way that you would never think it should work. Veiled Fate is a strategic deduction game where you have a hidden role and you are trying to earn points with your demigods as passively as possible because you need to keep casting this wide illusion of this player could be anybody on the table because regardless of player count, every demigod is always in play.
Yeah.
And so you are trying to move things into positions and you are making strategic feints where, okay, I'm going to make sure my character loses some points so that way it pulls some suspicion off me. Where am I going to take that dangerous thread the needle move of I'm going to move it into a position where it's going to earn me a lot of points, that type of thing. The game itself is on a large circular board, and you are moving these demigods between the central region that is connected to all the places, or from one region to another on the board. And there are quest cards that once you have moved them onto and you've placed, that will lock them into place, barring usage of a special power. And that is giving some level of information to your opponents because why did they move that particular character there? What are they going for? when you move a demigod onto a quest, you have to play a card face down into the pile. And if you're really careful and you're watching, oh, hey, that quest has 3 spots and they move 2 in, I know what card I'm going to add, so maybe I can get some information out of what did they want to happen over here. It is strategic. It is a lot of logical deduction. It is a lot of kind of getting the vibe off of people. And you are always watching who's moving what, when they get moved, how frequently they're getting moved. It is a puzzle that is constantly unwinding itself. And at every player count I've played it at, it feels very, very different. Now, we'll talk about this in a few minutes. There is a maximum player count that I want to play with without the expansion. And that number is 5.
Yeah.
Because you have gotten to play both the 5 and down player count, and you've gotten to play that twice. And you got to play the high player count mode that is a team mode when we play the expansion. Now, that said, we took 2 nights of Gen Con to play Veiled Fate. I brought my copy of Veiled Fate. We played it, and then we had the opportunity to play it with the IV guys as well on Saturday night. That speaks quite a bit to how much I love it, and it speaks very much to how much you love it, that you were willing to give a game that we already own and we already know multiple plays.
Well, I mean, I do believe I put into the text thread between you, me, and Jason that I will take it personal that I don't get to play Veiled Fate during Gen Con. Now, did I know that I was going to play it twice? No, I did not. But boy, I injured myself on the way back.
That's true.
From playing Veiled Fate.
That's true.
I crashed a lame scooter. Anyway, oops. Sidewalk's End, just so you know. Shel Silverstein was a liar. Anyway, but...
No, the title of the book is Where the Sidewalk Ends.
Well, apparently it's in downtown Indianapolis because they don't know how to paint their curbs. But anyway, the fact of the matter is the game is just glorious. I think I would have enjoyed the 7+ if everybody would have had their own god as well. Teams were nice, but I also was partnered with the Chaos Goblin, and I love her to death. And if she ever listens to this podcast, I knew the moment, like, I want to say turn 3, I knew she was my partner. But I knew I was going to have a good time. You guys didn't know who we were.
No.
But, which, I mean, that was a blessing. I think I would have enjoyed it a little bit more if it was still solo. It would have been easier and harder in the same breath to have been doing that game solo.
Yeah. I've thought about why they set it up that way. If you exceed 6 players, why it would be a team. And I think it's because if everybody were to have their own demigod within that high player count, you're just causing a lot of undoing plans. Did you ever play Shadows over Camelot?
No.
The game is not aged well. And one of the problems, there's a whole slew of them. Thematically, it's a mess. It's all the things. But one of the big issues that I have with Shadows over Camelot and why I ended up selling it is you do something and then it is immediately undone by the game. And so you're just sitting there just grinding cards away because you need to grind cards away because you need to go find the grail or whatever. And I feel like in a game with that many players that all the pieces are always around, you would end up in that position of, okay, I'm going to try to get my guy over here and somebody else just move them across the table and now there's no way I can fake something. So I think it actually helps that stealth of how you play, especially because you know that in a 8-player game, only half the gods have a human player attached to them.
True.
So that is one that I understand why they did that, and I do like that. The reason that I don't want to play that high player count mode, just base game anymore, I mean, frankly, it's because we play the expansion.
Oh my God, that expansion.
I have bugged Austin and Zach too much about their games. I love them. See any podcast episode we do. And I went up to Austin at Gen Con and I told him, hey, last time I picked up Veiled Fate, finally got to play it, yada, yada, yada. He said, cool. You want to play the expansion with us? And I freaked out. And I said, absolutely I do. And he told me to find some people. And we ended up in the basement of the Sheraton at almost midnight on Saturday night. And we played with Tribunal. And frankly, I am angry that I have to play the game without Tribunal for another 6 months.
Okay, so if you guys don't know, Tribunal is a modular expansion. So there's different things that you can slot in, which... you have the Goddess of Death, which by the end of the game, you can't have more points than the Goddess of Death. And there's different ways that she earns points, and there's different ways that she loses points. So not only are you sitting there trying to not have anybody figure out who you are, oh crud, I have more points than the Goddess of Death. So if this game ends, I lose
because
automatically.
Now I don't need to worry about who Scott is. If I have an inkling, I can just make sure, you're 2 or 3 points ahead of Hadria, and I don't care anymore.
Then they have the servants, one that is a scorpion, which gives 2 extra scorpions to the vote. You have, looks like an owlbear to me.
That's fair. It's like an angelic owlbear.
It's an angelic owlbear. It's a celestial owlbear that adds 2 feathers to the vote. And then you have like the water weird, almost like
it's like a chaos water dragon thing.
Yeah, it's like it looks cool.
It's a really neat mini.
It's a really neat mini. And it doubles
all the rewards off of a
So
quest.
that means if a person was supposed to lose 1 point, they lose 2 points. If they were supposed to gain 2 points, they gain 4 points. And you can only die once. So,
but Hadria will still gain her double or lose her double with that.
So you have
to be very
Hadria,
careful.
Which that's wild. And then
there's the Celestials module.
Then there's the Celestials. And we were actually playing where the Celestial was the sorcerer and one of the demigods was their child. The Celestial gets their goal. They win.
The Celestial that Austin was playing, what he had to do was make sure that their renown markers ended up in the same spot.
Yes, and that's what the idea
and still be lower than Hadria. And so these Celestials are intended to be used for that odd number player game.
Yeah.
Where if you have 7, you have 3 teams, and then you would have an odd person out. Now they have this one. There's one that I really both vastly want Natalie to play and do not want Natalie to play, because one of these Celestials is you need to figure out, it's like 3/4 of the people at the table. And if you get that, you win. Yeah, she reads people real well.
She would get every single one of us every single time. And that's beautiful because that Celestial, has like 7 different types or something like
There's
that?
a lot of them, yeah.
Yeah, they made all these extras and I'm just like, oh, this is a beautiful expansion. And mind you, I've played the game twice before this expansion, and I'm like, oh, this would drive people insane to have to wait. I feel for you because I know you love the game, and now we have to wait until 2025 for you to get that expansion.
We can go on about this game for a while.
Yeah.
I think it is very clear that we both rate this a shelf.
Oh my god, yeah.
To put it into perspective, Moonrakers has either been in my top 10 or it just barely got edged out of my top 10 last year. It's my number 11 game. It is the reason that I love IV. I specifically will go into their campaigns to get more stuff for Moonrakers. Veiled Fate is above Moonrakers for me. It will be in my top 10. There's a very realistic chance it will be in my top 5. With that said out of me, where do you have it?
Oh my gosh. I love a social deduction game. I've never played one like that. That takes it on a totally different spin. Mm-hmm. And to sit there and play that game where you're just guessing. At some point, you're just, I really think this is you, and I'm gonna try to tank it, and nope, I'm wrong. And it's just like, okay, I'm playing with these people, how do I change my strategy?
Mm-hmm. I had just as good of a time playing with people that I did not know, like the 2 guys we played, Jeff and Rob, as when I have played it with a full group of people that I play with.
Oh, yeah.
I want to play it more at 2 players. It's such an interesting knife fight because you still only have 1 demigod.
Oh my gosh.
But there's a lot more mind games going on.
Yeah. The artwork's gorgeous. Mm-hmm. The molds are gorgeous. Mm-hmm. The parts that are very, very simple are elegant, and the parts that are very, very detailed are exquisite. The simple cards of just with the feathers and the scorpion tails.
Yep.
It's elegant of black on white and white on black. And then when you look at how the board is laid out and you can see how much detail is in that board.
I don't know that they would ever do this. I want a tabletop set.
Oh.
I would love to see what that world is beyond the top-down view we've seen.
Or just storyline of like these little demigods. Yeah. Veiled Fate. I will go back to my starting statement of you've been a bad friend and how dare you. Hey Bat Family, Scott here. Join me and my friends for a weekly live play tabletop storytelling game on Theater Geeks Twitch channel. Check out www.twitch.tv/theatergeeks on Sundays at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
Table, shelf and trade. It's table, shelf and trade.
Hey, it's a Theater Geeks thing.
It is. Scott, why don't you go ahead and start us off?
We've already talked about it, and the first one that I'm going to talk about is A Gentle Rain. This is a total shell. The simplicity of the game is perfect. It just feeds into that whole, this is meant to be a solo game. It's not pretending to be something else that it's not. It's gorgeous. It really is. It's a really nice, simplistic art design. Yeah, I think when we talked about it earlier, tiles are a little big, but also that's also what is endearing about it, because you can actually see this garden start to form.
You can believe you're watching this lake.
Yeah, it really does get you into that mood, which is something that I always enjoy with the game. I might go buy this within the month, just because I need that type of game. Honestly, it would probably be a game that goes with me to work, so that way I can sit there and be like, I need 15, close my door, calm myself down, and then go back
Play
and
for
on
3
my day.
times.
Yep. Gentle Rain, shelf.
Absolute shelf. I decided to put 3 solo specific games on this. My first one is one that I'm very excited to talk about. And I have been a big fan of this since its original Kickstarter. It is Relics of Rajivahara by Joe Slack.
That is a pretty big box for a solo game.
But the beauty of it, and I made a comment to him in the Facebook group about this, that I actually play it directly into the box. Because if you do this right, you can actually play like this, because this is fully supported.
Oh, nice.
This is a solo only game, which admittedly, there's a little part of me that says, is it a game or isn't it an activity?
Okay.
But especially once you play into the level X stuff and you play the Montalvo's Revenge expansion, it very much is a game because of the complexities of everything that is happening.
Okay.
This is a block sliding puzzle for one person.
Okay.
But where the game is fascinating is there are 5 different types of blocks. And so you start with just regular wooden crates. They can be slid, they can be pushed. Then you get the heavy rocks that you can't move. And so now they are just stuck in place. Okay. Then you pick up water blocks. And water blocks, thematically, it's a little weird, but in my head, they're basically just gelatinous cubes.
Okay. You're pushing Jell-O. Got it.
They cannot be stood on, but if you have a fire block, they can put out the fire blocks because you can't walk through the fire. And then there are ice blocks. When they're pushed, they slide the whole way. And
Makes sense.
The very interesting trick on it is if a block ever hits the edge of the board, it is stuck on that edge. You are never allowed to pull it off because you have a little meeple standing there that helps you visualize the direction you're pushing from. You're not allowed to get behind it if it's on an edge. So you have to be very careful because if you push them too far, you lock in.
I've played apps like this.
And the deck of cards is all a preset layout, and you are trying to collect gems or you're trying to drop a block on Montalvo. There are a whole variety of different ways to approach the game, and I have had some puzzles that I have sat there and I've 30 seconds after I set it up, great, I'm done. And because setup is so quick, doesn't really matter.
Right.
And then there's some that I sat there and I struggled on for 2 nights. And then when it clicked, it was incredible. Because I'm like, oh, this is so elegant. This is the decision space, and what you need to do is beautiful. Joe Slack is a super nice guy. I have become friends with him because of my love of this game, and I told him that I was going to be talking about this in this episode. He does some really cool stuff. I want to look at his new game, Mayan Curse. It's a beautiful production. It's a lot of fun to play with because these blocks are just super fun, and getting to sit there and push them and physically manipulate something this nice on this small of a platform. And it's repeatable because it's been a while since I played the base game all the way through. I could go back and I bet you that one that I spent 2 nights on, I'll get stuck on it again. Phenomenal game. If you like that hard logical puzzle of I'm going to shift things and I'm going to move things and I'm going to need to find whatever my solution is, you'll really like this. The Montalvo's Revenge expansion is a lot of fun. It adds in some more weird kind of sci-fi type stuff. Like there are portal gates and there's snakes and stuff to deal with. Great game. For me, it's a shelf.
It looks like something that would definitely be up my alley. Mm-hmm. My next game, still a relatively new game. I like its concept. I'm already going to say it's a trade for me. It came out 2021. It was designed by Pablo Cespedes and Victor Hugo Cisternas. Artist was Ivana Gahona and published by Devere. It is Macescape. You're unfolding. It's a labyrinth, and as you go down and you're using your finger, you flip and open it. And I'm a kid from the 80s, so I used to have roadmaps.
Yep.
And I think it's a great concept. The artwork, it's okay. You're going through the labyrinth. You're going through Tartarus. There's definite themes that make sense. I'm unfolding a map. If I goof up, then I have to refold it to retrace my steps. And if I haven't goofed up, I still have this huge piece of paper that's all over the place now. Ugh. I thought it was like, oh, this will be really cool, because I think the first one was Greek mythology, and Greek mythology is my jam. So I was like, oh, this is going to be awesome. Oh my god, it's my childhood as a game and trauma.
That's a bummer.
Yeah.
So my next one, I mentioned the Oniverse series earlier, and I really try to figure out like which one should I talk about, but my next and final entry in the table shelf trade is so strong, I'm going to talk about one that I'm a little middling on, and that is Nautilion. Nautilion is one of the ones in the Oniverse series. It was the 4th or 5th game, and it is by Shadi Torbey. It has his super strange artwork on it, and it is a roll and move game.
Okay.
Which is crazy. The theme of the Oniverse is fuzzy and nebulous. It's very dreamlike. The artwork all reinforces it very well.
I've played Onirim.
That's by far my favorite of the series.
Okay.
That is almost a comfort game for me because it's a lot of shuffling and just holding cards. And
yeah,
I just shuffle cards for stress purposes. So that one is an easy shelf for me. Nautilion, though, you are going to lay out a big kind of winding path of tokens, similar to the way you would in Bites or Tutankhamun.
Okay.
And on one end is where you start, and on the other end is where your dark opposite starts. There's also an evil lighthouse that sits off to the side of the board. And you are going to roll 3 dice. 1 die you will assign to your ship, 1 die you will assign to the evil ship, and the other die you will assign to the evil lighthouse. And you want to make sure you don't give the evil lighthouse certain numbers, or else bad things are going to happen to you. When you move, your goal is to get to the starting position of the evil mirror before they make it to your starting position.
Okay.
But the tokens that are laid out are different crew members. And to get to the final position to win the game, you need to have your ship fully loaded with crew. And generally speaking, you can only have a specific crew member on there once. So you have to be very careful about what tokens you are taking, because the evil ship will move first and get rid of a token. And then you pick it up, and then you have to do certain things with it. There are a half dozen different ship designs and different rules for them. So there's a lot of flexibility from game to game there. And it's roll and move. Where my issues with the game come in, there are a lot of extra little modules, because that's kind of a hallmark of the Onirim series, or the Oniverse series, is here's the base game, here's a lot of ways to mess with it. I wasn't a huge fan of the extra modules that weren't just play a different board. It also has the problem, and we discussed this earlier, it can require a lot of table space. And for as slight of a game as it is, setting it up takes a while, because you're having to make the giant path of tokens, and then you're constantly fiddling with the path, which is my big point of contention with both Tutankhamun and Bites, is let me rearrange the path so it's easier to see what's going on, that there's not big holes in it, etc. So for the length of the game, for the complexity of the game, for what it gives me, especially when I compare it to something like Onirim or Arion, I have considered trading it multiple times. The biggest reason it stays is that it is a tiny box, and if I want to play it, I still can. But at best, I think it's a table at this point. I actually still think it's one of the best of the Oniverse series. I have not played Stellarion or Siberion yet, or Urbion, since that's finally getting a remakes. I really enjoy it, but I've kind of worn out on it because I've won with every ship, and I've won with every ship so many times that one has met a point where I see I have played the game out in a way that I haven't with other entries in the series. So for me, it's a table verging on a trade.
My last one is one that I know is a complete trade for you. We have talked about this game before. It is one of those games that's not typically done as a solo game. It is meant to be multiplayer. Mm-hmm. That was his original intention. I think it works better as a solo game. And that is Thunderworks' game, Cartographers.
Sure. Yep. I get that.
There's a real reason why I think it works better as a solo game than it does with more people, is you're eliminating the take that aspect of the game, because when the ambush happens, you can be a jerk if you want to, where in the solo version, the monster goes to the corner it's assigned to. It gets as close to that corner as it can, and that's where it sits. Boom, boom, done. Each of your goal cards that rotate through the seasons, they have a star value that get eliminated from your point total at the end of the game. So you're already sitting there going, shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. Okay, oh, this one's worth 26 points. Mm-hmm. Okay, this is going to hit me in spring. I'm not going to get a ton of points on this card in spring. Boy, I hope I can make up for it in winter. Mm. You know, I can at least build up on it. And so you're always looking at what that first card was as you're playing through. I mean, yes, you do that normally in the game, but when it's going to knock out 26 points,
that's a big deal.
It becomes a big deal. It has this fantastic scoring scale where it's -30 to +30, because after you get all your points taken away, whatever your final score is determines what level of cartographer you are. And sometimes I have been the worthless one, and other times I've done really, really well.
Is a high score variant.
It is a high score variant, yes. But I'll say it's one of those things of when I'm done, because I am a DM,
Sure, yeah.
I have a little map that I can sit there and I can flesh out more if I want to. I dig it solo, and I have all the extra little maps. Actually, I was downstairs at my hotel at Gen Con the very first night. And I was just sitting there in the restaurant, and I was playing it by myself. And people asked if they could sit, and I'm like, yeah, sure. I'm just doing this by myself, and I had my markers, and I'm just filling it in and making it a really pretty map.
So there was a stretch of time where I was very negative on flip and roll and writes, and I'm still not the most positive.
No,
clearly.
you're not,
But I have found more that I enjoy. That one still sits in the I don't like it category.
Okay.
I am a creative.
Yeah.
But my creative is in text, and it is learning to be within this realm, in the audio realm. Drawn or visual media is something that I have never had a talent in, ever. I do not understand. Like, my brain cannot grip how visual media artists do their thing.
Right.
I just don't get it. I don't have the ability to spatially align things appropriately, see something coming out of a block of butter and whatever. So as I'm sitting there, I don't care for the mechanism. I don't care to put a lot of time and effort into the map. And then I don't care for, there's a monster, or maybe there's not, but if a monster shows up, it's going to ruin what I'm trying to do. What I will give the game that I actually think is very brilliant, and I've only seen a couple other games, Isle of Skye being one of them, is the way the scoring comes down of you're going to score A and B, and then B and C, and then C and D, and then D and A.
Yeah.
So you're going to score everything twice, and you know that, so you get to aim for that. But yeah, this is one that I really tried to like because it is so well loved, and people do talk so very highly of it. I had a bad time with it.
Yeah, I am one of those visual people. I do draw my own maps. I actually took a class at Gen Con one year, and we did world maps, and we did scene maps. I am much better at world maps. That's what I like to draw. And so this is my wheelhouse. I knew when I put this on the list, I knew exactly where it was going to fall for you.
I totally get why people like it.
Oh, yeah.
It is just simply not a game for me.
Exactly.
So, I mean, absolutely a trade for me. Like, I don't want to touch it, but it is one that I get the love for it.
Oh, yeah.
Just not my
Like, if anything would happen to that game, I would go buy another copy. It's the reason why I have looked at other Thunderworks games, because a lot of their games are in that universe, and it's one of my games.
I almost put a Thunderworks game on for this segment because of its solo mode. Because I do enjoy it. My last one, like I said, this is the solo game. It's not Mage Knight. This is the solo game.
Oh, I knew the moment that we started talking about doing solo games, I knew Final Girl was going to be popping up.
I couldn't reasonably not talk about it.
Yeah.
Final Girl is all the things I shouldn't like. Ton of setup. It takes up too much table space. If you don't have the play mats, it is significantly harder to play. There's a lot of bits, a good set of standard rules, but then there's so many specific rules depending on the box you're playing. It's fundamentally a dice game.
Yep.
And it has a strong gore horror theme to it. It's slasher movies. I love horror movies, but I can't stand gore. So I don't have the gruesome death books. But I literally own every single other piece of content for this game. I have the Ultimate Edition of Season 3 coming in December or whenever it's coming, because it's late. I was resisting buying into it because the theme was putting me off. I loved what they were doing with the theme, but I didn't know if I wanted to engage with that theme. And it's the fact that it's a solo-only dice game that has a high, hard difficulty curve on it.
Isn't this...
It's a re-implementation of Hostage Negotiator. This is a direct re-implementation of it.
Okay, that's what I thought.
They smoothed out some of the rules, they cleaned some of the stuff up, and then they made it more thematic towards the horror movies.
One of our buddies, Dusty, from up in Michigan, you got some of his chapters.
Yeah, so last year at Gen Con, I finally bought in with the Season 2 stuff. They put in The Thing, Alien, and Silent Hill.
Yeah.
And 3 series that are deeply ingrained in me of IP that I love.
Right.
And I mean, yeah, it's the Evomorph and
whatever,
but it's those three movies.
You can see the direct correlation to what they are.
And so I looked at them like, okay, so if I pick these up, there are themes that I like, they are movies I want to try, and if things go well, then maybe I'll start collecting the other stuff. And then Dusty gave me all of Season 1 on top of it. And because I had already bought one or two of them, you got the remainder of it.
Yep.
It's a big game. It's a long game. Like I said, all the things about it I shouldn't like. But as you were sitting there and you're rolling these dice, and it is a hand management game where you are trying to keep a time track positive and a horror track low so you're able to roll more dice. Depending on the results of the dice, they're either going to be a failure, a conditional success, or a flat out success.
Yeah.
And so you then end up having to, on those conditional successes, weigh out, is it okay that I blow this, or do I need to spend some of my very valuable cards to pay to the dice to turn into a success? You are trying to save victims across all these movies. Every single box feels very different from each other. The final girls themselves, there's not as much variation in between them, but they still feel very different. They're very fun to play all the different ones with. There's some that I am absolutely in love with. There's one box in particular that I think is not very good, but 1 out of 11.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good hit rate.
Especially when you're dealing with anything that has a series.
Yeah. And the cool thing about the game is it is set up as a feature film system. That's what they're calling it, where essentially you buy a core box and all the core box has is the cards and rules you need for the system itself. Mm-hmm. And I actually do think that is a smart way to do it, because otherwise you would have to duplicate all that stuff every time, and each of these feature boxes would be significantly more than their $20 cost.
And also, it allows the person to customize their experience, which that is incredible.
Yeah, so each box has a final girl and a location, and then there is a killer on the other side. And these boxes are absolutely brilliant for production design because they are magnetic boards that are the outside of the box. You peel them off, you flip them over, and those are your play areas.
Yep.
Super cool. And what's nice about it is that everything is contained within trays inside of the boxes, and so it's all mix and match. If I want to play Laurie from the Friday the 13th film, but I want to put her on the space station from Alien, I can do that. Mm-hmm. And oh, by the way, I can have the big bad wolf from the Storybook Woods as my killer on that spaceship.
Yeah.
A lot of modularity, which you know is a big thing for me. Mm-hmm. It feels like a different game every time I play it. Even when I go back and try the same scenarios over again, it feels like a different game. It has spiking difficulty. There's so much going on. It's just wonderful.
Just like you said, this person, this location, this bad guy, that's over 1,700 combinations.
Yep.
That's insane.
Well, and there's 2 different final girls per box.
Yeah.
And there are promo final girls. And there is the little vignette expansions, which is just a new killer and sometimes a final girl in there as well, that you can play on anything. So one of the vignettes is the birds. So I played the birds in the Storybook Forest, and that was super freaking hard. I got destroyed by the birds. I managed to handle the zombies out of that vignette, but that's only because I was able to perfectly manage their spawns. But that's what I mean.
So I don't get the promos. I don't get those extra vignettes. Okay, 2 final girls. Okay, now you've just told me through over 3,400 different combinations, which, hey, I'm getting my money's worth.
Inside of each film for each final girl is a little envelope that it says, once you have won a scenario, open this little envelope. And this isn't a spoiler. Inside is a weapon, a new card to be shuffled into the item deck if you are playing with that file.
There you go.
And so there's now a reason to repeat play with the same final girls because now you get to use their signature weapon. It's cool. It's really cool.
It's really smart.
There's all the things I should not like Final Girl.
Yeah.
Just shouldn't. It's one of my all-time favorite games.
Yeah.
It's an absolute shelf.
That's awesome.
If you've been following along with this episode thus far, you know that Scott and I have been quite verbose. Our regular rotating segment has been pulled from this episode, and we're going to release it as a standalone piece of supplemental content next week because the conversation we had took up another half hour on its own, and we really think it's a great conversation and don't want to lose it. But in the interest of keeping our episode length where we want it to be, we are going to go ahead and do that separate release. Check in next week for our This or That Cascadia versus Calico.
Thank you so much for listening to us. If you would like to get in touch with Scott and myself or any of the other theater geeks in relation to Board All the Time, you can hit us up at boardallthetimegaming@gmail.com. You can visit us on our website, boardallthetime.com, where we will have a newsletter sign up as well as a feedback form. You can also join us on our Discord. The server link is in the episode notes.
And finally, you can find us on Facebook under Bored All the Time.
At this time, we'd like to thank our sponsors. Do you like shiny math rocks? I like shiny math rocks. Go to Robin's Nerd Supplies and use the code TheaterGeeks and receive 10% off your order. Links to the website is in our episode notes. Also, we'd like to thank EcoAll Press, a local printing company here in the South Bend area. Happens to be a union shop, and they do everything for your gaming printing needs. And what's so nice is that they're environmentally friendly. You will also be able to check them out in our episode notes.
On all that, Scott, I'm done with you.
I'm gonna go play Calico. Bye.